studio of Prunus Ode, there's a volume of the League of London. It is the personal copy of the author H.R. Madall. 38 representatives and heads of states of the Allies in the Second World War signed and inscribed the inner pages. The book was published in 1942, in the middle of the war. On 1st September 1939, Germany attacked Poland, and on 3rd September, Britain and France declared war on Germany. The Second World War unfolded. Indeed, the territorial ambitions of the three nations, Germany, Italy, and Soviet Union, had already planted the prerequisites for war. Germany had earlier devoured Austria in March 1938, and then seized Czechoslovakia in March 1939. In April of the same year, Italy pounced at the opportunity to take over Albania, and in May signed a pact of friendship and alliance between Germany and Italy. The Soviet Union signed the Nazi-Soviet Pact in August and carved up respective spheres of interests. Even though Britain and France declared war, none dispatched their armies to support Poland. So in September, Soviet Union advanced her military to occupy eastern Poland, while Germany occupied central and western Poland, partitioning off the country. In November, Soviet Union seized parts of Finland. In June 1940, she seized parts of Romania, and then occupied three countries, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. In April of the same year, Germany overran Denmark. In May, she overran Belgium, Holland, and Luxembourg. In June, she overran Norway and France. Meanwhile, Italy sent the army to grab some French territory at the border near the Alps. In May 1941, Germany occupied Greece and Yugoslavia. The whole of Europe was virtually subjugated. Britain was shielded by the English Channel, securing her isles, and many of the governments in exile subsequently moved to London in succession. China fought against Japanese aggression since 7th July 1937. By 3rd September 1939, with the outbreak of the Second World War, China had battled on by herself for over 2 years. By June 1940, with the surrender of France, China had battled singularly for 3 years. On 10th May 1940, Germany attacked Luxembourg. The royal family and senior civil servants left for Paris the same day, forming a government in exile. On 14th June, Paris fell. The government in exile first moved to Lisbon and then relocated to London. In London, Hans Roger Madall was appointed press attaché to Jean, the Grand Duke of Luxembourg. In 1942, to promote the accomplishments of the Allies, Madall interviewed many of the representatives and heads of states in London and compiled their interviews into a book named The League of London. The Allied countries represented sequentially in the book are Czechoslovakia, Poland, Norway, Holland, Belgium, Luxembourg, France, Greece, Yugoslavia, the Soviet Union, the United States, China, Albania, Austria, Hungary, Denmark, and others. Apart from China, the United States, the Soviet Union, and Hungary, the Allied governments above were now in exile in London, their territories all occupied by Germany and Italy. In 1943, Madall invited 38 of those representatives and heads of states he interviewed to sign or inscribe in his personal copy of the League in London. This remarkable edition was bound by a specialist English bindery. Aside from the blue leather binding with gold finishing, 11 sheets of paper were interspersed in different sections for signatures and inscriptions, thus creating a truly precious historical document. The positions of these 38 personages are President of Czechoslovakia, Prime Minister of Czechoslovakia, State Secretary of Czechoslovakia, Ambassador of Czechoslovakia, President of Poland, Prime Minister of Poland, Foreign Minister of Poland, Prime Minister of Norway, Foreign Minister of Norway, Prince of Holland, State Minister of Holland, Foreign Minister of Holland, Foreign Minister of Belgium, Minister of Colonies of Belgium, Ambassador of Belgium, Grand Duchess of Luxembourg, Prince Consort of Luxembourg, Prime Minister of Luxembourg. Prince of Luxembourg. Foreign Minister of Luxembourg. Minister of Labour of Luxembourg. Minister of Justice of Luxembourg. National Commissioner of Public Instruction of France. King of Greece. Minister of Propaganda of Greece. Finance Minister of Greece. King of Yugoslavia. Queen of Yugoslavia. Prime Minister of Yugoslavia. Minister of Commerce of Yugoslavia. Ambassador of the Soviet Union. Ambassador of the United States. Queen of Albania. Party leader of the Conservative People's Party of Denmark. President of Hungarian Society. Leader of Free Hungary. Archduke of Austria-Est. And Ambassador of China. At the time, the ambassador of the Republic of China in London was WWII Wellington Koo. He was the former ambassador to France. After the fall of Paris, he was appointed Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Britain in May 1941. Inside the book, he wrote one inscription in Chinese and one in English. The Chinese inscription was executed with a traditional brush, and the English inscription with a pen. It reads, "Heaven sees as the people see. Heaven hears as the people hear. V.K. Wellington Koo. London, September 22nd, 1943. Heaven sees as the people see. Heaven hears as the people hear originate from the text of Sang Su, known as the Su Jing, or the Book of Historical Documents, one of the 13 classics of Confucianism. These sentences are to be found in the chapter The Books of Shan, The Great Declaration, Part 2. China was a Confucian nation then. The majority of those in public service aspired to classical studies and values. WWII Wellington Koo was the preeminent diplomat of the Republic of China. His zi was Sao Chuan, native of Jiading, Jiangsu Province. In 1905, he enrolled in Columbia University, New York, and successively received a master and doctorate degrees. In 1912, he returned to China and became English secretary to Yuan Sikai, the first president. In 1915, he was appointed Minister Plenipotentiary to Mexico and Minister Plenipotentiary to the United States and Cuba. In 1919, he was a plenipotentiary delegate to the Paris Peace Conference. After declining to sign the Treaty of Versailles in 1920, he was appointed Minister Plenipotentiary to Britain and delegate of non-permanent member to the Council of the League of Nations. In the following year, he was appointed acting president of the Council of the League of Nations and one of the plenipotentiary representatives to the Washington Naval Conference. In 1922, when Wang Chonghui was acting prime minister, Koo was cabinet minister of the foreign ministry. In January 1927, Koo was prime minister and cabinet minister of the foreign ministry. He resigned in the same year. In 1931, he was appointed committee member of the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Central Political Council of the Nationalist Kuomintang and acting minister of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the national government. The following year, he was appointed representative to the Lighton Commission of the League of Nations, Minister Plenipotentiary to France, delegate to the 13th Assembly of the League of Nations, and delegate to the Council of the League of Nations. In 1933, he was appointed representative to the London Economic Conference, and he was appointed delegate to the 14th Assembly of the League of Nations. In the following year, he was appointed arbitrator of the Permanent Court of International Justice in Hague. In 1936, he was appointed Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to France. In 1941, he was appointed Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to Britain. In 1945, he was the chief representative to the United Nations Conference on International Organization in San Francisco. From 1946 to 1956, he was appointed Ambassador Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary to the United States. Mainland China fell to the Communists in 1949. Ku remained ambassador to the United States for 7 years. From 1957 to 1967, he was judge at the International Court of Justice in Hague. His works include The Status of Aliens in China, Memoranda presented to the Lighton Commission, The Open Door Policy and World Peace, the autobiography of V.K. Wellington Koo. The author of the League of London used the nom de plume of Hans Roger Madel. His real name was Gerhard Salomon. He was born in Berlin of Jewish descent. His father, a businessman, died in Auschwitz concentration camp. In 1936, Madel fled to Denmark, and in 1936, escaped onward to London. In 1940, he was appointed press attaché to the Luxembourg Foreign Ministry. In 1950, he was offered the position of Commissioner of Information of Luxembourg. In 1953, he was chairman of the Luxembourg Society. He passed away in London in 1956. Madel was a celebrated biographer of European royalty, and his writings covered a span of 3 decades. He was acquainted with many European royal houses and aristocrats. Hence, he was well versed to recount their anecdotes and bygone tales. His personal interest in collecting rare books and manuscripts eventually led him to a profitable business in rare books before the war. His works include The Private Life of Alexandra, Christian IX, Europe's Svyatogor, Ferdinand of Bulgaria, The Shadow King, Life of Louis XVII and the Fortunes of the Naundorff-Bourbon Family. Madel edited the League of London and the United Nations Yearbook, 1946 to 1948. Examining and reading this copy of the League of London 80 years later, my indignation towards the vicissitude of fortunes is not spurious utterance. The Sino-Japanese War beginning 7th July 1937 and the Second World War beginning 3rd September 1939 were both emanated from the ruthless occupations of other countries by Japan, Germany, Italy, and the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union had originally been cajoling between the Axis and the Allied alliances. Not until Germany attacked her in 1941 did she resign to embrace the Allies. With the Axis defeat in 1945, the Soviet Union relinquished her deceptive facade and plundered extensively at will. The countries represented in this book, such as Czechoslovakia, Poland, Yugoslavia, Albania, Hungary, certainly capitulated to communist dictatorships under Soviet authority. Yet many more countries not represented in this book also succumbed. Only until 1989 was Eastern Europe fortunate enough to regain their independence and freedom. After the war, one of the signatories of the book, King Peter II of Yugoslavia, went into exile in the United States. Another, Queen Geraldine of Albania, went into exile in France. On 9th August 1945, a week before the official declaration of unconditional surrender by the Japanese government, the Soviet Union seized northeast China with an army of over 1,700,000 men. Pillaging and looting, they withdrew in May a year down, before transferring enormous quantity of military equipment left by the Japanese to the Soviet-groomed Chinese communists. In no time, the nationalist government lost the Civil War, retreating to Taiwan in 1949, and mainland China was completely communized. In that distant year, when the 38 representatives and heads of states signed the League of London, how could any of them possibly dream that their known world, if it were not destroyed by the Axis, would still be destroyed by the Allies?